What are you trying to save money for? So the biggest reason that people find it hard to save money is that they don't know what they're saving money for. This is exactly the same problem that people have when they're trying to get fitter, stronger, healthier. What are you aiming for? What is your goal? Have you got a set weight in mind? Do you have a set savings amount in mind? Are you trying to save for a new car, a house deposit, a holiday?
Welcome to the Young Money Podcast with Marais. This episode of the Young Money Podcast is brought to you by More Time Financial, a financial planning, money management and financial education business helping young Australians to make smarter decisions with their money.
Welcome to episode 25 of the Young Money Podcast. I'm your host, Marais, and on today's episode, we're going to switch it up a little bit and I'm going to put it over to you guys and answer some of your questions. So what I've found over the last couple of years and since starting this podcast really is the amount of questions that I get asked on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So what I thought would be a good little segment was that every now and then just drop in a Ask Me Anything episode where I'd do my best to try and answer any of your questions or any of the reoccurring questions that I seem to get from listeners or clients or people that I meet on the street. So in today's episode, I answer 3 questions. One around saving more money. The second one was whether or not it's a good idea to get a credit card or use a credit card. And then finally talking about that really fun topic of putting more money into superannuation. So try and do my best to answer these 3 questions for you listeners. And of course, if you have any questions that you want me to answer on the show, you can get those questions to me in a few different ways, but I'll put the links to those down in the description below. But if you follow me on Instagram or find me on Instagram, shoot me a message there with your question and I'll do my best to answer it on the next Ask Me Anything episode. So hope you enjoy the show. Now, before we get started on today's episode, this is just a friendly reminder in order to keep our lawyers happy that in preparing this podcast, myself and any contributors have not taken into account any particular person's objectives, financial situation, or needs. So before acting on any of this information, you should consider its relevance to your personal circumstances and if required, seek the assistance of a licensed professional.
So the first question comes from Adam on Facebook. Adam asks, how do I save more money? I have a full-time job. I'm 26 years old. I earn good money for my age, but I can't seem to be able to save any money. So Adam, thank you very much for being the first question on this show. I really appreciate you taking the time out to ask your questions. Now, Adam, the first thing that I'll say is what are you trying to save money for? So the biggest reason that people find it hard to save money is that they don't know what they're saving money for. This is exactly the same problem that people have when they're trying to get fitter, stronger, healthier. What are you aiming for? What is your goal? Have you got a set weight in mind? Do you have a set savings amount in mind? Are you trying to save for a new car, a house deposit, a holiday? Whatever it is, tell me exactly what you're trying to save money for, because without that goal, without that target, it is near impossible to save. Just the same as when you're trying to lose weight, people say, well, I just want to be skinnier. How skinny? What do you want to be weighing? How much weight do you want to lose? What is skinny? How much, what is that? Define that goal for me. Give me exactly what you're aiming for, and then things get a lot easier. Now, in saying that, once you have a goal, it's not just going to magically happen, but at least it gives you something to aim for. If it's a big goal that you have in mind, like saving for a house deposit, take a photo of a house that you really like. Take a photo of a house that you can see yourself living in. Put a picture in your bedroom. Put it up in the bathroom mirror. Give yourself some inspiration of what you're aiming for, and that will go a long way to you helping to reach that goal. The next thing I would look at is, are you able to earn more money or are you able to spend less money? Those are always the 2 options when you want to save more. You've got the option of spending less or earning more. Now, if you work in a full-time job, and I'm not sure what your circumstances are, but maybe you can't earn more money. Maybe you can't take a second job. Maybe you can't buy and sell things on Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace. Maybe that's just not an option. So if earning more money is completely off the table, which I think if you'd really looked at your personal personal circumstances, you probably find there's ways to make some extra money on weekends or after hours, but put that aside. Let's assume that you can't earn any more money each week. So then your only option left is to spend less money, which definitely is not as fun as earning more money. But if that's your option, then the first thing I would do is to look through your expenses. So being a young male, if you're like most Australians, the big three items or the big three areas where you're likely to overspend are lifestyle. So coffees, drinks, gambling, going out, whatever it is you do for fun. I would look at that, how much you're spending in that category. The next one is food and groceries. Take a very close look at how much you spend each week on food and groceries. So what's your shopping bill like? Take a look there. And the third one is presents. So if you're like me, you're going to be going to engagement parties, weddings, baby showers, 25th birthdays, 30th birthdays, they just seem to pop up every second weekend. That is a big area. How much are you spending on accommodation? How much are you spending on presents for weddings? What are you doing there? So look at those three items very carefully, or those three areas very carefully of your expenses. And if you want to go a step further, if you're not sure exactly how much you're spending, track your spending each week. So jump onto your banking website and have a look at your expenses each week. So get in the habit of doing this and just give you an idea of how much it costs to be you. So those would be my tips on how to save more. Set yourself a goal, have a look at your expenses at the moment, and if you need to, start tracking your expenses. The next question we have comes from Steve. He said, is it a good idea to get a credit card? We were talking about this and he said, look, I'm going traveling. I've heard it's really good to get a credit card because you can get some points. And I said to Steve, this is a real big question that I get asked all the time from clients and other friends. And unfortunately, the answer is not a straightforward one, and it really depends on your personal circumstances. But I would premise this by saying that credit cards are great and credit cards are also evil. And it really comes down to how you use them and if you have a good budget in place. Why I think credit cards are great is because they let you use someone else's money and you can use your money to be put it into savings, put it in an offset account, and do some really interesting things with your own money and then wipe your credit card at the end of each month. But for most people, they don't have a good budget in place and they aren't used to spending money that way, and they get into a really bad habit of spending money that they don't have and get into credit card debt, which at the moment, Australian credit card debt, especially with younger Australians, is astronomical. It's just insane how much credit card debt our generation has. So that is why I think that they are also evil. And they're evil for so many reasons. The interest rates on them, if you don't use them properly and clear them each month, are insane. I've seen credit cards up to 23%. So once you start having a fair bit of credit card debt running 23%, it makes it quite difficult to get out of. So they are great if you use them for the right reasons. Yes, you can get points on them. Yes, you can use them overseas while you're traveling because not everywhere accepts debit cards or maybe your card that you use back home. But I'd be very, very careful in getting a credit card unless you are used to using a credit card and you're going to use them for the right reasons. So my thing is always save as much as you can, and if you need to use a credit card, make sure you have savings in a savings account, maybe a holiday account, and once you use the money on your credit card, transfer that money out of your savings account and wipe your credit card and everything's great. By all means, if you've got a budget, if you're good with your money, you've got some money in savings, then credit cards can be useful. But if you're not used to them and you're terrible with your money, I would be very, very hesitant to getting a credit card. And as always with any financial product, make sure you read all the small print and find out exactly what you're getting before you commit to anything. And the final question for today's show is from Mick. Mick asks, should I put more money into superannuation? I'm 25 years old, I work as a high school teacher, and people at work are always telling me that I should put more money into superannuation. So Mick, again, this one depends on where you're at financially. So let me explain that a little bit clearer for you. So putting more money into superannuation is a great idea. It will only help you to save more money in the future, and down the track when you're able to access your superannuation, then you're obviously going to have a lot more money in there if you can afford to put more money in today. So what I would firstly do is Google something called compound interest, if you don't know what that is, and have a look on there, find a compound interest calculator and find out how much your money could be worth by putting a little bit more money in each week into your superannuation. But I do need to explain that a little bit clearer for you. So if you have high debt at the moment, if you have a large amount of credit card debt and personal loans that are at high interest rates, then I'd be hesitant about putting money into superannuation, and I'd rather you be attacking that debt first. Also, if you have other savings goals that you're aiming for, so maybe saving for a house deposit, a new car, a holiday, something like that, I would be cautious about putting money into superannuation, because once you put it in there, it is very difficult to get out. So there's lots of rules about when you're able to access your superannuation. So while it's really great to put more money into superannuation, you are limited on when you're able to access that money. So I'd be careful about that. Secondly, I would want you to find out how much money you're putting into superannuation at the moment. So if you are like majority of Australians, the minimum that has to go into superannuation that your employer has to contribute for you is 9.5% of your earnings each year. Being a school teacher, I know in Queensland, I'm not sure where you're located, but in Queensland it's a bit different for some school teachers, where they get a lot more money going into the superannuation each year compared to the average Australian. So if you're in that boat and you're already putting extra money in, then yes, there would be beneficial to put more money in, but you may already be putting enough in, and you might be okay for now. Obviously things are going to change, and you might be able to access and put some more money in, access some more funds and put some more money in later on in life. But I would want you to find out that. So you can do that in two ways. You can either look at your pay, or three ways, sorry. You can do that by looking at your pay slip and working out how much money going into your superannuation that way. Speak to your payroll department and find out how much money is going in, or thirdly, contact your superannuation fund and find out from them how much money is going in there. So as I said, it is great to put money in, more money into superannuation while you're young, because that's only going to grow and compound and be worth a lot more money when you're older, thanks to compound interest. There are rules and restrictions on how much money you can put in each year, so be careful about that. If you're planning on putting a lot of money in, there are rules around how much money you can put in, and also rules about when you're able to access it. So do a little bit of homework, but by all means, depending on your circumstances, it is very, very beneficial to put more money into superannuation when you're young. But if you've got a high amount of debt or other savings goals in mind, then you might want to reconsider that option.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Young Money Podcast, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest episodes, and feel free to leave a like, comment and share it with a friend.